Okay, welcome everybody to the work session for January 21st at 4:30. Can I get a roll call, Mr. Petty?
Councilperson Tony Abbott. Here. Councilperson Dylan Little.
Present.
Councilperson Tommy Roulette.
Present.
Councilperson Lenny Fryman.
Here.
Councilperson Brett Bondurant. Yes, sir. City Attorney Dale Wilton.
Here.
Mayor Kelly Malone.
Here.
And myself.
Okay, purpose of this meeting, I believe, is to allow the LCD to come and talk about their project or their grant or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
The one thing I'd like you to do, Kelly, is keep track of time. We got two subjects I'd like to talk about tonight.
Okay.
And you guys more know what questions you're gonna have, so what I don't want to have happen is this getting all wrapped up in one subject and we don't get to the other one.
Oh, no problem.
So when you feel like
I'm not gonna cut you off.
well, I just want to talk about both of them. So if we get all wrapped up, feel free to say, hey, we got a lot of questions on the other one too. The two subjects are definitely going to be the update on the riverfront project.
Okay.
I brought in a couple of engineers, the ones that are certifying our levee. Any questions you got tonight, we want you to ask and we'll answer what we can, and John's here to answer what he needs to.
Okay.
The second topic is everybody knows we're chasing a grant, and I think everybody knows that we're hoping it's a community participation. So we're here to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask right now, I'd like to start with the riverfront project. So anybody having any questions at all, we can direct them to John Mundell, Luke Johnstone, me, or some of our board members, or John, if you want to start it off, and feel free to ask. Well, he's going to tell us where we're at here, and then I think, Matt, you're here to say
provide any information that I can too, yeah.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good seeing everyone. As Paul said, I'm the certifying engineer for the levee, and so one of my roles is to make sure anything that gets developed or put adjacent to or on the levee doesn't jeopardize the safety of the levee. So that's what this whole process has been as far as a review of the riverfront development, is making sure that it's safe for the city under extreme flood conditions and it meets all the Corps of Engineers requirements. And so the other thing I just want to point out again is that this is a fairly unique development. It's not often you have a development that has components on the levee and in the river. And it's not only somewhat unique and complex for here, it's unique everywhere. These kind of projects aren't run-of-the-mill. So that means what? That means that in tackling this project, you hired two firms to deal with the engineering and analysis, both the analysis on the levee and in the water. And so part of our review process this year has been to make sure those two components are covering all the aspects of the design and construction, and that there's a seamless kind of garment between the two. You can't have a set of specifications that are different, that don't have data gaps or problems where they interface. So so that's kind of what we've been doing. What's the status is the good news is that we're heading toward the finish, I hope, we're hoping, of the process. And I'm going to have Luke come up and just give you a real quick summary of what's taken. It's been about a year, right? When we first heard about this project, it was about a year ago. And I'm going to have Luke kind of just pass real quick what we've done, and then we'll open it up if you have any questions on our review. So Luke, you want to come on up?
Thanks for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. So like John was saying, just a big picture sketch arc of what's gone on over the last year, and then what we've been looking at and the nature of some of our comments in this review process. So, about a year ago, we received the first submittal. It was kind of a preliminary 30% plans, and the purpose of that was just to give us an opportunity. It was placed on our desk and also the Army Corps' desk. So to give the Army Corps and us an opportunity to take a look at the preliminary plans, give some general feedback about their approach, things they might consider as they barrel towards the final design plans. So it was on Army Corps' desk and our desk about a year ago. We wanted to give the Army Corps an opportunity to review the plans, and we wanted to see their comments so that we could incorporate their review into ours. So they finished their initial review back in April, and then we turned around with our comments in May. And there was some back and forth over the summer, some between us and the design firms with some comments, clarifying comments and questions. And then it wasn't until September that we received both the 100% plans of both the Riverside and the levee embankment project, because there's two sets of construction plans. So 30% plans in a year ago, but in September we received the 100% plans. So as you might imagine, there's a lot more that gets added to plans from 30% to September. And there were key plans that we hadn't saw for the first time in September that prompted more comments. But we've been prioritizing this review process, and especially September, we've been prioritizing and trying to respond in a very rapid manner. That's the overall arc of the timeline over this last year. What's the nature of our comments? Many of our comments are straightforward but key and very critical comments, but they're straightforward. So straightforward to address, so to speak. We're identifying omissions or making sure that the details are aligned with Army Corps requirements for development on a levee. Like John mentioned, there's two sets of plans, just making sure they align between the two sets of specifications, that kind of thing. So many of them are straightforward, can be easily addressed. What I'll say, major comments that we've had are comments that have prompted more discussion. The key thing about those comments is that we're working on behalf of the Lawrenceburg Conservancy District. We're aligned with the Corps on those major comments. They have the same questions for those major comments that have prompted more discussion, and they're going to want the same answers because we've talked to them about those issues. So we're looking for those, we've got some of them, and we're looking for those responses, and we know the Corps is going to be looking for those too. So like John mentioned, he mentioned we just received the latest submittal this past Thursday evening. So Friday, we're taking since it was so recently, we're looking at those now. It looks like they've responded to them, and we're in the process of, reviewing all those responses. So if there's any questions, we're here. You can ask them now or.
So from September to now, you talk about that there's been some issues. Could you elaborate on what those issues are that you're trying to address for us? I hear that there's omissions and stuff like that, but I'm curious, what exactly are the issues that you're trying to address?
Yeah. So you want like examples or just general?
Just general.
General, okay. Probably I'll start with one big picture thing is the fact that this levee was designed for the flood of 1937, right? So the Army Corps, this is the Army Corps levee. They look at that design. What was this levee designed for? It was this elevation at the top of the levee, right? Then there's the FEMA requirements. So there's the Army Corps accreditation process, and there's the FEMA accreditation. And so anything that touches the levee embankment or involves the levee embankment, we have to consider the top of levee, which is what Army Corps looks to. FEMA doesn't necessarily look to the top of levee. They look at what we call the 100-year Ohio River event, right? Army Corps is looking at the top of levee Ohio River event. The 100-year Ohio River event is at about 490 elevation, and the Army Corps is looking at the top of levee, which is about 502. So there's a 12-foot difference. So some of the comments, especially that have prompted some of the discussion, is we have to consider what's going to happen to anything that touches the levee when the river is up at the top of the levee. And so we've been asking for details about, we understand what's going to happen for the 100-year, what's been presented, but we've been asking for additional details, what's going to happen when it goes to the top of levee. That's something we have to consider because this is the Army Corps. Army Corps is considering that, so they have the same questions.
When you say top of levee, are you talking about like a 500-year flood, or what exactly is the scenario? Is that what you're talking about?
It's, top of levee is what it was designed for. It's the flood of 1937. It's actually greater than today's 500. Back then, back in 1937, it was about 500. But yeah, it's just what it was designed for. It's what the Army Corps looks towards. It's what Congress authorized Army Corps to build this levee to. So it's an act of Congress to look at this top of levee, so to speak.
And the question we have to answer is, what's going to happen to this development when the water is that high? What happens? What's going to happen to those gangways? What's going to happen to the barge, to the whole structural components? What's going to happen to the utility lines? So we wanted to make sure that all of those questions were answered for the top of levee elevation as well as the 100-year. And that's been part of the last month, really, is trying to clarify that and making sure, will it withstand the pressures of that flood? If it won't, if there's something else, if they can't design it to withstand those pressures, what will happen to the facility? Will it fail? If it will fail, how will it fail?
Well, I was gonna ask.
Will it impact the embankments if it did fail? So that's the kind of things we've been.
Well, I was going to ask you, what would potentially be the failure if something like that was to happen? What kind of damage does it create to the levee, so forth and so on, for downtown? I haven't been involved in all of the beginning, so I'm curious. I was just elected a year ago.
Very good question. And there's different moving parts to this. So basically, we're looking at it in terms of, if that top of levee, if the river rises to that, which is what the levee's designed for, is it going to lead to what's going to happen to this riverfront development? Will it lead to catastrophic damage to the levee, which is what we're trying to prevent? That's what we're looking at. That's the question we're asking. We honed in on certain aspects of the river, the development. What's going to happen to this feature when the river rises? Those are the questions we're asking in the process of reviewing.
What has been the response from our engineers?
So, for example, two examples. One, and it is so we have the gangways, right? And it attaches to a platform. One of the gangways attaches to a platform, right? And this platform has piles, poles that go into the ground 40, 50, 60 feet, right? So, and this example of the timeline, right? So we get the preliminary plans, we see there's piles in the levee embankment, and we say, hey, what's the depth of these piles? Because they weren't in the preliminary plans. That was our first comment letter. The next set of plans we get, in September, we see the plans show the piles, and they're extending 40, 50 feet into now they have the depth on these plans. So we say, okay, that's typically, it's a little bit complicated, but basically we were looking at it and we said, it's on the riverside. These are deep penetrations. How is it going to affect the levee? We talked with Army Corps on this issue. So we said, okay, provide us a narrative. What's going to happen? Will this lead to, how will this affect the levee? They responded in the comment letter, hey, here's what's going to happen. And actually, modified the design to say, okay, these poles, instead of being hollow steel poles that go into the levee, they're going to fill them with concrete so that water can't get into those poles and cause seepage. So they've addressed like that, that comment, and they had a few other things that, recommended putting protection, riprap around those poles so that when the river comes through, it doesn't erode around the poles. So that's one, and then we're also asking questions about, the gangway connections to the levee itself, right? Because the gangways rest on the levee, but they don't just rest, they're like physically attached to the levee. So that's issues we're working through right now, in addressing those, and reviewing the responses to those.
What's the difference between now and back when the big casino book was down there? The big casino book had gangways, it had electric going to it, sewer lines going to it, everything going to
Right.
it. And didn't seem to have this kind of trouble.
I have two thoughts on that, and then
You go ahead.
the first thought is, we haven't reviewed all of the 1996 riverboat plans, so I can't 100% speak to all the nuances, the differences. The second thought is Hurricane Katrina happened in 2006, and that was a big wake-up call for the Army Corps and FEMA. One of the reasons why Katrina was such a catastrophic failure is because levees failed. And so FEMA, after the aftermath of Katrina, they saw that the levees failed, so they turned to Army Corps and said, Army Corps, how many levees do we have in the country? Because we need to understand what risk we're insuring against, right? And Army Corps said, we don't know. They built all these levees in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, let them go. So since 2006, it was a major watershed moment in levee regulation with Army Corps, FEMA. They started coming to all these levees across the country, inventorying them, checking on them, what's the status, how are they, what condition are they in, and they've been paying attention a lot more. So, yeah.
And they've been upgrading their design standards
Yeah.
to refine them to
Yeah.
account for a lot of these things. So-
Yeah, a lot of the design standards are written in the 60s, 70s, or 70s, 80s, 90s. Now they're coming out with updates post-2006 with new design standards.
We've had two big projects on the river next to the levee, post-2006. Were you all involved in the event center? Okay, because, I mean, took about, half the levee? I mean, that would have taken an act of Congress, it seems like to me. That's a much more intrusive project than what we're doing here. Also, I just want to reiterate, we've been talking to the Army Corps as well throughout the whole project, and I believe the latest information we had gotten from them was they're satisfied. They're waiting on the sponsor letter from the LCD, and they're ready to issue the 408.
Address that, John, please.
I'm sorry?
I want Kelly not to interrupt, but John, please address that. That's a pretty key comment when the Army Corps of Engineers is satisfied. What's your feedback on that, please?
Let me go first.
Okay.
This is something a lot of people here don't know, but I personally was told this. We will never let Lawrenceburg do another convention center, parking garage, Ivy Tech, or doctor's office to our levee. It's not gonna happen, don't bring it to us. That was said to me by Dan Franks, Christina Newts, David Lasowski. There was a group of people, and that was said.
That's in writing, or they just told you that?
It was a conversation, yeah.
How long ago was that, Paul?
Probably, those guys have been retired now, and we got a new group. So you're probably looking at 5, 6 years ago
Who are
to that amount.
I didn't recognize. Oh, I didn't recognize any of the names.
Army Corps.
Every one of those people. Now, David Lasowski's still there, Jacob Neighbor's still there, but that was said. So,
Well, the other thing on the event center, they came to us because they were concerned with removing several of your relief wells. Would your event center be able to handle water coming up and getting rid of the water in the same way. So there was a lot of work that was done by us to evaluate that and basically say, if you design the basement sub-drainage system right, it can handle it. And so all I can say is, we were part of that, and that was a big concern at that time. This time, as far as this review, we've been in contact with the technical folks who, as we've looked at these issues, we've gone through several of these big issues. Not to design your new development for the top of levee is considered a deficiency by the Corps. I mean, every design that we're dealing with the relief wells has to address that elevation. And so part of this last kind of big thing was the fact that when they went through the plans initially, they did everything to the 100-year flood and did not look, well, what happens when it goes here? We knew the Corps, with the discussions,
Who did everything to the 100 year?
your engineers.
Okay.
Just because that's what they were used to, but this is a Corps,
Moffitt and Nichols,
yeah,
because there's two engineers.
yeah, they're
The
Moffitt and
right?
Nichols
Right.
and Structure Point. We had to kind of remind them the analysis, the engineering, the design has to meet that standard, or at least be considered, at least say, either we designed it and here's what's gonna happen, or we didn't design it, but we're gonna let something happen anyway. So in other words.
To answer the question though, why is it that the Army Corps is telling us all they're waiting on is a sponsorship letter? They're ready to issue the 408.
Who were you talking to, Kelly? Could I ask? What's
Matt?
your comment?
Andrew
Matt,
Brooks?
what's your,
What I've received from Andrew Brooks via email, I think I've shared it, is they want the LCD's comments to be addressed first, and then they'll do what they do. That, I mean, I've shared this with
Basically,
Is this open to the public?
Yeah.
and basically,
Podium.
basically, they want your certifying engineering group to be satisfied before they do their final review. What we're saying is, we're not adding extra effort on our part that's beyond what the Corps requires. We've been in discussions on the technical issues to make sure that these 100% plans, when they're finally through, they're done. We've addressed their concerns. So maybe he said they were ready to, but they were wanting to make sure we address
go
these
ahead.
final issues.
Yeah, I would clarify one thing. There's two permits at issue here. One is the 408, this permit. The other one's the 404. The Corps has said they're ready to issue the 404 permit.
Right.
For the water side improvements. They're waiting on this permit process to finish. So I think maybe that could help clarify it a little.
That's good.
But the question I have then is, okay, from what I understand, you've received the last answers to your questions.
That's correct.
Are these the last of the questions?
We just received them Thursday night, so like 6 p.m.
Yesterday was a.
Friday, so we got, it looks like they responded to them.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, a lot of the comments are straightforward and minor, so
Okay.
I anticipate a lot of those being addressed, and we just have to review these last.
So, I mean, my question is, thank you. I've seen, Luke's been very good about communicating. I've been on the emails, things like that. But my question is, if they have answered your questions that you had sent, the last set of questions, if those questions are answered to your satisfaction, are you telling me there will not be another set of questions?
We don't, unless they've changed something we didn't
There's
anticipate.
no changes. I mean,
Yeah, I think our they've addressed every one of our.
That's what I'm asking.
question,
Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna be there.
Yeah.
I think we're.
because I don't know how many questions there were, but if there's 5 questions and they've answered those 5 questions satisfactory,
Right,
you're going to say, hey,
yes, yes.
you have done everything we've asked you to do.
Yes,
I think we're.
There won't be another set of
Right.
5 questions,
Right.
because that's, okay.
right.
What is everything that we still need to get the 408 permit at this point from the
There-
Conservancy?
They're,
Are there,
stamp of approval.
is that it, or is there other
And
requirements?
then Army Corps will
they'll review the
take
final.
a final look at it.
I've got a question. I need some clarification here. You keep saying the 100-year floodplain, and then you say the top.
Yeah.
Which the top evidently is a 500-year, you're saying maybe? Am I understanding that right? What is the levee certified at this time? A 100-year floodplain?
It's not
Well, it's not certified, but it was certified prior to that. It was a 100-year floodplain.
There's two, for FEMA, they're looking at the 100-year.
Okay.
And that's the
100 year.
provisionally accredited levy, FEMA, that's flood insurance. And then there's Army Corps, and Army Corps looks at the top of levee.
And they're calling that a 500-year floodplain.
It's actually more than a 5. Today, current hydraulics of Ohio River, it's even more than a 500. But that's
So-
how they're obligated to look at.
So right now, we have a gangway that was put in years ago.
Right.
Is that one there grandfathered? Is it good? Do we need to be worried about that one as well?
That's a good question. Currently, it's there, and it was approved at the time, so it hasn't been re-looked at. That design of the 96 design hasn't been re-looked at.
How long is that, our current gangway?
That's from 96.
96?
But just to clarify though, I mean, we are redesigning, Moffett Nickel, I should say, is redesigning that connection point as part of these plans to make sure that there are no holdups. It's not like that one
That's on the new plan.
on the new plan.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that
Yeah,
piece.
thank you.
Let me ask, I mean, I know back in the 38 flood, it flooded pretty good.
37.
Or 37.
Did it
Well,
flood again in
anyway,
38?
well, it was probably still here at 38. But didn't they put locks and dams in to eliminate a lot of that? Now, I know we haven't had any kind of flood like that. Now, how they are anticipating a 500-year flood going to come that high? Is it going to tear all them dams and stuff down, or?
Great question. So that's what I was saying. At the time, it was around 200 to 500 year. Back in 1937, the Ohio River system hydraulics have changed in the 60s, 50s, 60s, right? So now it's even, it's like greater than a 500-year flood. We've had similar questions with Army Corps. It's like, do we need to look at this top of levee? And they basically said, listen, it was an act of Congress for us to build this levee to the 1937 flood. So if you want us to change that, we have to go to Congress, is basically what they said. So they said, show us the top of levee, and then we can talk. But we have to show it.
In other words, you have to show the analysis for that kind of condition.
Right.
If we don't meet it, then we have to justify why we couldn't meet it, and here's why it's still okay. So with the rest of the components of your levee, we're doing that, the relief wells, the side slopes, et cetera. But for this, for anything we put on the levee, we have to ask the same question. And most of what we asked them in this time was, consider that elevation. Tell us what's going to happen. In the original plans, even 100%, there was no discussion about what's going to happen. We simply are trying to get that information so we can say, okay, you've considered it. Is it going to fail? If it's going to fail, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of discussion we wanted to make sure they captured so that we could look at it, feel comfortable, and then the Corps we know is interested in the same
Yeah,
question.
we are interested in the same questions.
Though I do want Kelly to say, we got these, we'll use your example, the 5 questions. I'm not sure we can say.
Jimmy,
we
can
don't
you
know
come to
what
the podium?
answer is.
Come
We
up here
don't know
because
what the
everybody
answer
can
is.
hear it.
We don't know what their
my
answers are,
question-
so for us to say we won't come back with a question.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying there won't be any additional questions
Oh, other than the 5.
other than those 5, because
I-
it's been a
Yeah.
series of questions.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
So I just want to finish my thought.
Sorry.
So do you have an idea when you have the review done?
We're going to be jumping on it this week, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
I've been pushing them on all their reviews. I've been telling Luke here, Luke, you got 2 weeks. And this is the first week. So, and he's been really ahead of the game on that. So they've been responding, I think Matt would agree with that.
I would say Luke has been
And
very responsive.
Matt's been good to work with. I mean, it seems like everybody's been good to work with.
Yeah.
And I want to give you guys an example of how much I think that the Corps is working with us. And if you remember on Whiskey City Apartments, the first thing we had to do is move the apartments away from the levee a little bit, and they wanted to build a walkway over to the levee. We didn't, there was a very distinct answer on that. No, you're not doing that. And I think it was because it was a private company. Right now, I feel like the Corps of Engineers is working with this community to try to give them every chance in the world to do this project. And that's what these guys are looking into, to make sure that everybody behind this levee is safe. And what we're concerned with is we don't want, at the end of this project, I don't want Mundell and Associates to come up to us and say, well, heck, we're no longer going to certify this levee because of the project. That's why we're looking at it so hard. Is at the end of the day here, I want this project not to interfere with the certification of this levee. And we have to do that for the community. It's just something we have to do.
Now, Paul, how close are we? You're talking about to get this done, is when you guys come back and everything's okay, is there gonna be anything else to hook us up? I mean, are we gonna be ready to go?
Well, what'll happen here is John's gonna look at this. He's gonna make a decision. Hey, I think we can do this the way we're talking about. And he'll write a letter of support at some point when he's satisfied that, to my directors here, that I'm okay with it. I can move forward with my certification, and it will not interfere with that. And then at that point, my directors will have a vote.
Can I make a comment first?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're talking the same here. This project doesn't determine certification of that levee.
Absolutely it does.
Absolutely it doesn't. That levee hadn't been certified
It's provisionally accredited.
since 2008,
You're right.
and that was only supposed to be good for 24 months.
And it is still provisionally accredited.
How long have we been working on certification?
During 2 10-year terms, and we've been working, I came on board.
You can't say that this project is the reason it hadn't been certified.
Well, I didn't mean to say that. If I said that, I was wrong. Yeah, if I said that, I was wrong. What I meant.
Thanks, I didn't.
No, what I meant is I don't want this project to stand in the way of his certification.
I agree with you.
So I might have said it wrong, but that's what I meant. Okay?
Before you sit down, obviously there's also been a lot of rumors about Conservancy holding this up. Could you address that? What's like, I know you've talked about a lot of different things, but what exactly is going on?
Well, I don't think we are. It's a complicated project. It has a lot at stake. When you think about what you got at stake, look, the day FEMA calls us back and says, hey, the clock's going to start, which several people have set in on. I've been in on 3 calls now from FEMA. A year and a half ago, they called back saying, hey, we're back. Me and Dave Staub had a meeting with the Corps of Engineers probably, Dave, 8 months, a year ago. And at the end of the meeting, my people from the Corps said, Paul, are you ready from FEMA? They've been getting information from us. They will be doing this in the near future. As of right now, the Corps called me about 2 weeks ago. It wasn't 2 weeks ago because I wasn't able to take a call. Sometime around the holidays, they called me and said, we are going to be coming to the city of Lawrenceburg and we're going to be doing a risk analysis of your levee. That's something that's going to happen, they said, early this year. Now, early this year to the Corps of Engineers might be October.
So the Corps is coming, not FEMA.
The Corps is coming. FEMA can call any day.
But didn't the Corps just do a risk analysis, Paul, a year?
No, they did a formal inspection. This is going to be something brand new. They're going to come. They're going to look at our levee. They've already been looking at John's work. So they're taking that all into consideration. They're gonna be looking at how much is behind our levee, how many people sleep behind it, the school systems, the courthouses, and everything involved in this. And then that analysis is probably gonna go to FEMA. I don't know of any other reason why, and you might know a little bit more about this, but it is gonna happen. It's something new they're doing. There also is a webinar that's gonna be happening on the 27th, I believe, and it's gonna be about issuing 408s to how they can help and hurt levee systems, you know, good projects, bad projects, and so on. But it's just, Dylan, I've told them, and these guys have had a lot of work, because you are right, we've been working. I got elected to the board in 2012. John was hired. We've done numerous studies, a lot of work. We've tested the wells, we've located them, we've found them, and we're getting so close to doing this. As a matter of fact, our schedule, we were hoping to turn in all the information to FEMA and the Corps before or during the holidays. And because of us putting this project, I mean, every time we had it, and I told these guys, drop what you're doing, turn over the work on the project. I want it done, I want that done. So we've put ourselves behind some, but that's okay, we'll get it. And that's,
All the FEMA, the FEMA and the Corps, is that the whole levee system with Greendale, or is FEMA just Greendale?
FEMA, the Greendale levee system is a FEMA levee system. The Corps does not recognize the Greendale levee system.
So that mean that
There's two systems here. You've got the Lawrenceburg levee system, and you got the Greendale subdistrict levee system.
My last question is going to be, and this will probably be geared more towards the engineers or Matt. What's the long-term maintenance on the Riverfront Development Project? Do you know anything, or what that would look like?
For any like specific component, or you're just talking overall?
Or overall?
So that's one of the details. I know Dell's been involved with. We have to work out a maintenance agreement where the city essentially assumes maintenance responsibilities for all the new facilities, anything that comes out of that. So that's part of what we're going through as part of this Army Corps review process. But that essentially gets wrapped up into this whole project, and it gets declared through a maintenance agreement long term. That's another thing. I think the attorneys have that, right, Jared, and the Corps working through that process right now? Is that, am I remembering that correctly?
Jared and Dell's working.
Yeah, with the Corps,
Maintenance
The
agreement.
maintenance agreement was already done. I mean,
It's pretty much done in principle. Okay,
yeah, we have a maintenance and monitoring agreement.
right. So,
Work collaboratively.
What
right,
do you
so
think the estimated cost is on annual maintenance?
it's going to be one of those, it depends on the year. You know, it is a aqua, or a marine environment, not a marine environment, it's freshwater, but rust, things build up over time. It's, years, there's going to be painting, there's going to be those. It's going to be kind of a ebb and flow just based on how the system weathers.
Do you think upwards of $250,000 a year? I'm just curious because of our budget annually and what it look like in there.
If I'm being honest, we haven't run those kind of numbers, so I'd be just kind of spitballing for you. I mean, you should assume some annual maintenance, though. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the project? Thank you. Appreciate the update.
Pick up the next topic. So the second topic would be, as you all know, we had a meeting at the firehouse and we're in pursuit of a grant. I was hoping to come to you tonight with two resolutions in hand. We have a resolution that the Lawrenceburg Conservancy has passed. We're hoping that this is a community project. We have identified projects in the Lawrenceburg levee system, which is going to be right now, your weak link in the Lawrenceburg levee system is your relief wells. They're 85 years old. We've done our studies. There's still some good ones. There's a lot of bad ones. There's some that things can be redesigned. And John's probably, I would say, you're 90–95% complete on all that, knowing what to do and present something to the Corps. There's also an area over by the tanks on the Cinder Road that we're talking about the possibility of a slurry wall, piling, some type of thing that might go in that area to keep water from penetrating in at a deeper depth. So he does have a project. The project identified in Lawrenceburg is I would say roughly a $30 million project. Now, that project also that we have identified in Greendale is a pump station toward the back, would be back toward the football field all the way to the back. And there's a sinkhole behind the old suntan place, and Dave has bought it, and it's his construction office now. There's quite a project there that there's been a sinkhole that keeps appearing. It's been appearing for a lot of years. We've done all kind of tests on it, and there is a cure for that. We've also have a freeboard issue on the Greendale levee. When it was built, it needed to be a certain height, and right now it is between 1 foot and 0 inches. It's not a lot. We think we can fix it with a possible trail on the top to bring it up to freeboard height, but that is a project. So there are other things in that. That pump station and that, you're looking at roughly about 40 million. So what we're doing, and as you know, this is an engineer's estimate, and this is 2025. We've already updated the price once and came to those figures, and I'm sure at some point, depending on how long the grant chasing is and when this all happens, stuff raises every year, everybody knows that, but right now we're focused on those numbers. They do have contingencies in them, so we're hoping that all works out, but we're looking at that being a possible 40 million, so you're looking at a $70 million project. We've been told we've hired a grant team to chase this grant. A community effort works better, a bigger grant, chasing, we're shooting for a brick grant. That seems to be the most money that you can get in these things, but we're not limiting ourselves. The way the lady told us is that if you prepare for a brick grant and you get all your ducks in a row, you're ready for other grants. You're going to be able to change things, and you're going to have all the studies done, and you're ready to maybe jump over here and chase another grant. We're looking for a lot of support from different politicians and hoping you guys can help us with connections possibly up in the State House, along with some of our local politicians. But we're also going to, at some point, ask you to participate in this. We are hoping, right now I have a resolution from the Conservancy District. We went out, and I don't remember the date. Do you remember? Went to a meeting in Greendale. Appeared before their redevelopment commission and council. They had them all there, and I thought it was a real good meeting. Some of them had some questions, which is fine. They're working through it. I thought the meeting was very positive. I think these guys contribute to that thought a little bit. And we don't have a resolution from them yet. However, we don't have one yet. I think it was positive. I think we're going to get one. So I'm here tonight asking to plant a seed, to see if I can't draw up some interest somehow and put it in your heads, and you guys ask us questions, or let's take it just like we did the last subject. Let's talk about it a little bit. See, my guys back here might be able to talk to you a little bit, and if you got questions, let's ask them.
What's the resolution actually say, Paul?
Do you have a copy of it, Jimmy?
Actually, Kelly, it just says that if we get the grant, we committed to
25% match.
25% match.
That's what the money's for.
It's about $4.2 million is 25% for 4 groups, Lawrenceburg, Greendale, LCD, and the county. But yeah, I've got a copy.
How'd the county meeting go?
We have not
been there
had.
yet.
we
Oh,
haven't
haven't had that one?
Well, I was hoping to come here with Greendale's and then get your thought on it. And then I thought if we can get all 3 of us together, then I wanted to go to the county and talk to them. So that was the plan. And this, you know, Vince had a back operation and things are just moving a little slower out there.
I think we've got some real support from redevelopment, Kelly,
Why
from
don't you explain
Greendale's redevelopment.
Timing too.
Yeah, I think, and again, what we're talking about is a commitment. It may be 3 years out for this money to be available.
Well, but 3 years out, that 70 million turns into 80.
Well, we put in a 2% inflation factor, and we got a 25% contingency factor also. Again,
Well, now, and the reason I say that is the SDRSD project went from 15 to 25 in 18 months.
oh, the sewer district, yeah. Oh,
Wait, here, I got a couple questions, and then these guys are more than welcome to ask questions. So this $70 million project, how many years will it take to complete that $70 million worth of project?
I'll start off with the Lawrenceburg project. I would say that, are you asking me from, let's say we get the grant.
From the time you start demolition or whatever you're
Okay.
going to do to finishing the
We're
project,
talking about the project itself.
just the project.
I think on the relief wells and the slurry wall, you're probably looking at a 1.5 to 2 year project. Because keep this in mind, we have 170 plus or minus relief wells. We have to abandon those per Corps' regulation. And then John's got a design that he hopes that we can put 90 to replace the 170.
So, John, did you guys design the project?
Yeah, we're designing that project, yes.
Okay.
And that project design isn't, we're not done with that design, but that was enough of a design that we wanted to put out what it looked like for the purpose of this grant.
Right.
Okay, so the grant, is the grant coming federally or state?
It'd be a federal grant.
Federal grant?
Kelly, our schedule looks like we're shooting for July of 2027 as far as that's how long it's gonna take to work through. I mean, we have a whole packet. I think like Paul said, we're gonna have to have multiple work sessions. We have a lot of material to go over, but we kind of had this opportunity to hit 2 issues. I mean, we're not ready for any type of resolution. I'm sure there's tons of questions.
Well, and I think the other thing is you're not looking for a commitment tonight or a monetary commitment tonight. You're looking to see if there's support, right? And then basically, even if we had a resolution, it's going to be contingent to you all getting any grant funding, correct?
If we don't get a grant, you know, you wouldn't even put the money in until, if the grant's okayed, and we know that we've reached, $50 million on the grant, then at that point, we would probably be running around saying, hey, the project's ready to start, and we need to think about depositing it. Now, I would like to answer your question about are we chasing federal or state? I don't want to limit to either one.
Right. Well, what I'm saying, though, is it sounds like you've got somebody looking at a grant.
We've hired JMT, and they have a professional grant team.
But have
Yeah.
they even looked, is there a grant available for $70 million? The BRIC grant. And have they?
Don't know that.
Oh,
It is,
Greg said you did, and you say you don't.
Last year, I think, but since the administration's changed, we have no idea what they're gonna do.
that's a good point.
Well, that's what I mean. We may be looking for nothing.
But it's costing no money.
We gotta look,
Yeah, I know.
gotta try.
I don't disagree with that, but like when we go after a grant, we know what grant we're going after and how much it's gonna be for.
I guess we do know we're gonna chase a brick. We do know we're gonna fill out all the applications and we're gonna go after a brick. And we do know that once we get that application filled out for the brick, if one of our senators or state senators or somebody says, for instance, Jimmy, a lot of conversation with Aaron Houser. There might be something off to the left there that, hey, come over here, we'll help you with, for instance, we've got design factor on the Greendale part that's gonna cost us to design the pump station, that they might be able to come up with that.
There's opportunity for other types of grants and
Okay.
stuff, yeah.
But I think the brick grant gives us the best opportunity to get that much money. I mean, we're gonna have to get a lot of grants.
But what happens if you don't get any grant?
Our fallback,
Yeah,
go ahead, Bill.
That's something that this board is gonna have to back up, and they're gonna have to regroup and have some serious talks and make some serious decisions. I mean, my guys are gonna, you know,
Are we
I
talking
can't
about
really
the
say.
Lawrenceburg? What's our fallback on the Lawrenceburg? We could do a phase-in, right, John, we could come up with a plan to replace the relief wells over time.
Multi-year phase-in of new wells.
where are you gonna get that money?
We'll probably, our yearly budget, we have a budget plus.
Okay.
What the forecast is, and
Are you doing any of those wells now with that budget?
No, we're focused on studying.
But that was, if you remember, Paul, back when we increased the amount of money for the land lease, the reason for that was to get started on identifying these wells that need replaced and then start replacing a few at a time. You were gonna do a maintenance program to replace so many every year, is what I recall. Do you recall that?
All I know is years ago, there was a fellow named Grant Hughes that put a proposal in the late 2000, like 2008.
I'm talking about when we increased the,
When we went and got the raise on that, we were just, Kelly, we were in the red.
no, when we went and got the raise was yours and I's first year in office,
I remember, first month.
the first month.
Yeah.
And, because, well, I won't say why, but the thing is, what I recall was the conversation with the board of directors at the LCD, and you were a part of that,
Yeah.
was that there's going to be a program set up to start replacing X number of wells every year with that money, because that would help with certification at the time, or accreditation, I don't know.
Well, from the very beginning, we have been talking about replacing the wells, but when we had $500,000 a year coming in and the money we had in the bank, we fell way short of just doing our studies to the point where it's okay to replace all the relief wells.
Okay.
So it was a matter of survival and keeping the 35 million from turning into 22, and once our money's gone, it's never gonna come back.
Right.
So that's where we're at on that.
Okay. All
I
right.
mean, and looking back over the years, yeah, I mean, 30 years ago, if we would have been on the ball and things were done, the relief wells could have been replaced.
I agree, but I'm just looking at 9 years ago when we made this agreement. And the whole reason for that agreement was to help the LCD because the money was not bringing in enough interest. But there was also a plan in place to start replacing these relief wells. So many, it was I remember being called a maintenance plan so they could keep up with these wells, so many every year. I don't know, John, you may remember that.
Yeah, what I remember is there's a difference between well replacement and maintenance. We did the first maintenance and cleaning of those wells as part of that process.
Right.
We cycled through and got through to the maintenance side of things as we were investigating what to do with actual replacement. So you're right, it paid for the maintenance of those wells over a time period.
So you're maintaining these every year now?
Well, now we're getting to the point where we say, are we just gonna maintain, or are we spending more money to maintain than replace them in groups or all together? And what we're kind of talking about now is, it looks like long-term, instead of trying to spend so much maintaining them, we're going to cycle and replace. And that's
At some point, rather than put a Band-Aid on it, I get it.
I might add too, even when you get new wells or old wells or whatever, it's still part of Army Corps requirements to maintain them I think you have to inspect them every so many years and rehabilitate them, clean them out, basically.
How many years do you have to do that?
I think every 5 years.
Okay.
Unless you can show that you don't need to and demonstrate that. But we hadn't done the original wells for decades, right? So that's why we had to first do it. And then now
We did a second round, and then we can see how quickly they degraded, so then you can have more conversation of how often you have to rehabilitate them.
Okay.
But now we're, with this new grant, we're talking about either, you ask how fast we could do it. It's gonna take probably a couple of years to do, if we were gonna.
So your backup plan is to just keep maintaining these wells rather than replace them then?
It may cost more sometimes to maintain them than.
I understand that, but yeah.
Like 20 wells a year or something. I mean, we've talked about the option.
And there was another project that Thielen had, and the Corps put a halt to it, and it was basically, we're going to put a new system in, a new pump station, and they didn't have any consideration toward the old wells at all. They stopped the project. That's when John got involved. He looked at their work, and that's when all the conversation between the Corps, you got to prove to us that these wells are bad. Find them. That's when we found 156, I believe, and then we put, what did we put in? 10 to test new ones. So there has been things done, now that we're talking about it, there has been things done leading up to a plan to put before the Corps.
Well, we know which wells, we have some good wells that are performing. John's done a study on good wells, bad wells. The only thing I can assure you, I think we all have grown up here in this community. The levee is one of the most important assets we have. We all know that.
Yep.
So somehow, some way, we don't get the grant, we're gonna have to come here as a community, we're gonna have to come up with the money to keep the levee certified. If we don't keep the levee certified, it's a FEMA levee, 500 a year, it's a great levee. We've done a lot of work over the past, I don't know, 20 years, but there's a lot of work to be done in these relief wells. We got new pump stations, we got new gates, we've got our collector systems good. The relief wells are really our last original piece to this, besides the dirt, which you can't replace the dirt, but it's our last piece that we've got to, so I think we'll have, if we don't get the grant, we'll have to come back and we'll have to come up with a plan.
Okay.
Could you provide us with language for the resolution that you guys are requesting? That way we can review it?
Yeah, I'll get that to Dell. Dell, I'll send you what the grant writers, and the reason why the resolution's important, in order to get this grant, and Kelly, you know this, there's a scoring system when you go to get the grant, and one of the scoring systems, part of it is, hey, if we give you this grant, can you come up with a match? I mean, why would they want to look at our grant project when we say we need a $18 million grant, but no one's committing to it? So the whole purpose of the resolution, we're not asking you for the money. That money would be in 2027. What we need to know, do we have a commitment from our community to keep the levee certified? I think that's what it comes
But are we assured that the levee's going to get certified with this project? Assured.
Well,
Right there's the man that
Yeah.
certifies it.
I will certify with my professional engineer's license, and then it's up to FEMA to then say, you're accredited.
Go ahead.
It has to be certified by an individual engineer first. So everything we're doing is leading toward that. Everything we've been doing in this year, this first quarter, this first half of the year, everything we're doing is needed for us to certify.
So they just need you to put their name on a paper, just put it on there and say it's certified.
There you go.
You're right. That's
You've been working on it. You know what's been done. You should got to feel good about it.
I feel very good about everything that's been done on Greendale and Lawrenceburg. We need to push it over the finish line, and this is what this year is about.
I was going to say, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but for me, I mean, it would make sense to invest in the downtown area, obviously, for,
Well, does anybody here have any questions of what would happen if we can't get the levee certified when FEMA gives the call?
Yeah, we know what's going to happen.
flood tax.
Can you tell us?
Flood insurance.
Is that all?
Probably not.
Building permits are done. You're not gonna get any building.
But here's the thing, Paul. The thing is we've been doing this. We've been talking about this for 16 years. It's been long. That how long it's been at it, right? Why now?
Well, I mean, here's what my group, and when I say my group, I'm gonna say from the beginning of Conservancy District, from when the money came to town.
Sure.
They have rehabbed the pump stations to now where you have pump stations that they don't need anything. They might need something tonight, something might break, we'll fix it, but they're in very good shape. We put a SCADA system in to make us better at our job if something does happen. You used to have floodgates that it would have took probably, I would say 20 to 40 people to set them up in 2 weeks. Now I can give Brad a call, I can do utilities, they can help me, and I can have this town shut down in probably half a day. So there has been a lot of good done, and for me to explain why the relief wells aren't in, I think one of the big factors was when the Corps of Engineers shut that project down. Now, I think that we can't make a move unless the Corps of Engineers blesses it. So we're trying to get to the point to where we present it to them and you put your stamp on it, John, and then the Corps of Engineers looks at it and says, I will let you do this project. So it's not like you can just decide to start, and they proved it. Thielen just decided that they were gonna put new wells in and a pump station, and the Corps' like, wait a minute, shut this job down, and you need to look at a different engineer. We want somebody to look at what he's doing. So that puts a thought, and that was probably the year 2012. And then you had that scientific process evaluating that work. And then I was superintendent in 14. And we've been trying to get something ahead of them. We found, from 2012 till now, we've located relief wells, we've added some, we've done testing, we've monitored high water events, which don't come very often, but we have monitored them. We've did geophysical work on the levee. We've done, you tell him, go over everything we've done.
Well, I think what we've also done is, back in 2012, there wasn't a communication, very good communication between the technical engineers and the Corps. In the last decade, but especially in the last 4 years, we have been walking lockstep with the Corps of Engineers.
they've come out with, during this time period, brand-new design requirements. They've updated all of their manuals, and we've been inputting into those manuals and working with them. So we have a good relationship. So I think we're moving, and this year is going to be significant because we're going to finish a chunk of work here in the next 2 quarters that will put us in position to have these projects, so.
So, just a quick question. Like I said, I don't know a lot of the people here and stuff like that, but you guys are an engineer company that basically specializes in levees throughout the state. I mean, that's what you're noted for, or do you do other type of engineering too?
Well, we do other type of engineering, but we were recommended by the Corps to come onto this project. The person at that time.
Have you certified other levies?
No, but no one else has either.
Oh, no other levies in the state are certified?
Only the Corps of Engineers has certified levees that they operate and run.
Themselves.
Okay, all right.
So
Any
it,
oth- Go ahead, I'm sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Any other questions, Cal?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you guys, the grant you're going for, will it hurt that the money that you got in your bank, showing that, will that be so high as it's not going to, it's going to hurt you guys by trying to get this grant?
Well, you guys have got grants before and you got a lot of money. I mean,
Some,
I don't.
some of them have hurt us,
Some of them has hurt us.
but not all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't told us.
Just depends.
They haven't told us, Lenny, that the amount of, I mean, that money we have has to maintain that levy forever. I mean, it has to maintain the levy forever, so it's like an endowment. I think we need that money to keep Lawrenceburg certified, and we really are getting close. And John's, over the past 4 years, I'm on John all the time. We need to get this information sent in, he knows it, he's looking at me, to FEMA. We've got to get, and we were ready to submit to FEMA, hopefully, a few months ago, but we've got thrown behind a little bit, and he's gave me a new schedule. We have to get this information into FEMA. Like you said, Kelly, we've been working on this a long time. We need to get these levies recertified.
Okay.
I mean, we have to. That's what.
I got another quick question. Just besides the ground lease and the interest that you guys earn, is there any other revenue that Conservancy gets, or is there like state, federal money that comes?
No, the only revenue we
Conservancy
get
is
is
just
from the lease that comes from the city and our revenue from our investments. That's it.
But we've added to that lease. How much do we give you a year?
1.7 million. It increases 1% every year.
It's closer to 1.8 this year. It goes up 1% every
Yeah,
year.
every year it goes up 1%. I'm checking this.
Greendale doesn't give you any money, the county doesn't give you any money. I mean, we do already contribute.
I don't
Well, you
think any of those
contribute.
counties have a land lease with them either, right?
Right. You contribute though, Dale, from the boat, the boat's located on LCD's property, is that right?
We pay you more than the original amount. The original amount's $500.
500,
We've
yeah, I
added
went-
that, we've added that recently.
Right. I wasn't here when that got increased.
Just so, I mean, just because, you know. it's
That was
public
9
meeting,
years ago.
So that everybody knows.
Have you guys thought about taxing the freeholders in Greendale at all?
We've done studies. Yeah. I mean, we've done studies, but the studies showed that.
It'd be pretty hard, Dylan, to tax that much that's needed to.
No, I was just curious, I mean, for long-term success potentially, to look into it. Well, I'm not saying Lawrenceburg,
You're
I said
talking about
Greendale.
Lawrenceburg, you're talking about
Greendale,
Greendale.
Lawrenceburg contributes money, so I'm talking about Greendale.
So it's mostly just businesses that that levy protects.
If the nest egg was gone, that would have to happen. That's where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Good information, and thank you on both the project and on we'll take this under advisement, and we'll get back to you guys.
Really, we'll let you know as soon as we know from Greendale, right?
Yeah. When we get the resolution from Greendale, I think we set up another, I mean, what do you want from us? What can we provide?
Well, I think we need to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But if you need information, we've got
Yeah.
estimates. We got a big meeting coming up Thursday over at the Adult Center. Hopefully, it's our community awareness. Hopefully, everyone will be there. Our engineers of Creedale will be there. Our grant writers are going to be there. We're looking for letters of support. Hopefully, we've got to get our community behind us. And they said that's the biggest part of this grant process.
When do they want to submit for the grant?
When do they want us? I got the time. June, or let's see, January, ending funding, probably next year, the first of next year.
Okay.
Sub-application date, January 2026.
Got it.
When are you meeting with the county?
Say that again.
We don't have a meeting set yet, though. We figured,
I don't know as many of them, and I'd like to walk in with, you know, my support or know that I don't have the support. That's one thing. The meeting Thursday is going to be from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Now, the reason why it's that long, all it is for people to walk in, to meet our people, to ask them whatever questions they want. It's not going to be something that you need to stay to see the whole thing for 6 hours. It's for convenience. We'd appreciate if you stop in, meet the grant lady, ask some questions, because she's going to be able to answer a lot more detailed things on that grant than we could tonight. But if you get a chance, pop in. We're going to have pizza from around the town and refreshments and things. So, you know, eat lunch or do whatever you do.
Well, I just want, I want to get this right. You said pizza?
Thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks, guys.